There is a town in Florida where the elevation hits 154 feet, the poverty rate hits 33%, and a house once sold for less than the price of the used Honda Civic parked in its driveway. Florida is supposed to be beachfront condos and Orlando McMansions, right? But drive 3 hours north of Miami and you will find towns on actual ridges, actual hills, and actual caves where a 3-bedroom house costs less than the average American used car. The average used car in America costs $25,730. Several of the towns on this list cost less. Number 1 has been cheap since the 1920s, and the reason involves Coca-Cola stock. Let us get into it. Dixie County on the Big Bend coast, roughly 120 miles southeast of Tallahassee. Population roughly 1,700. Cross City is the county seat of Dixie County, which has the lowest median home price in the entire state of Florida at roughly $95,000 to $96,900. Average home value in town sits around $68,744. The economy runs on timber and commercial fishing. The nearby coast at Steinhatchee and Horseshoe Beach draws scallop divers every summer. There is no Starbucks, there is no movie theater. The nearest hospital with a trauma center is over an hour away. Cross City has a Dollar General, a few gas stations, and a main street that closes early. The reason it is cheap is the reason most of these towns are cheap. It is far from everything. No major employer, no interstate, no reason for anyone to drive through unless they are heading to the coast to pull scallops out of the Gulf. Cross City is the baseline, the cheapest county in Florida, the quietest entry on this list, and the template for everything that follows. Dixie County has no incorporated cities other than Cross City. The county's entire population is roughly 17,000, spread across 700 square miles of pine forest and salt marsh. The Suwannee River runs along the eastern border. The Gulf coastline is mostly uninhabited. If you want isolation in Florida, Dixie County delivers it. The trade-off is that isolation is the only thing it delivers consistently. Taylor County, roughly 50 miles southeast of Tallahassee on the Big Bend. Population roughly 7,500, the tree capital of the South. The entire economy was built on timber and paper mills. Taylor County's median home price sits around $98,000 to $100,200, making it the second cheapest county in Florida. Median household income $40,898. Poverty 18.9%. The annual Florida Forest Festival features a lumberjack competition and a free fish fry that feeds the entire town. Perry has a Walmart, a small hospital, and a downtown that feels like it was built in the 1950s and never updated. Hurricane Idalia hit Taylor County as a Category 3 in August 2023, the strongest hurricane to make landfall on the Big Bend since 1896. The storm surge reached over 9 feet in some areas. Homes that were already cheap got cheaper. Perry was already struggling before the storm. After the storm, it was struggling and soggy. The timber industry that built the town is shrinking. The young people leave for Tallahassee or Gainesville. The fish fry feeds the people who stayed. The Foley Cellulose Mill, now operated by Georgia Pacific, has been the anchor employer for decades. When the mill sneezes, Taylor County catches pneumonia. The town has a small town charm that real estate listings describe as peaceful, which is a polite way of saying there is nothing to do after 7 in the evening. Perry is the kind of place where everybody knows your name because there are not enough people to forget it. Madison County, roughly 60 miles east of Tallahassee on I-10. Population roughly 2,800. This town has the bleakest numbers on the entire list. Median household income just $30,673. Poverty rate 34.8%. 1 in 3 residents lives below the poverty line. Madison County's median home price barely tops $100,000. The town has a beautiful courthouse square with Victorian-era buildings, a small hospital, and a Winn-Dixie. It also has a federal prison. The Madison Correctional Institution is one of the area's largest employers, which tells you everything about the local economy when a prison is a jobs program. Madison sits on the I-10 corridor between Tallahassee and Jacksonville, which means people drive through it at 70 miles per hour without stopping. The speed limit through town is 35. The economics feel about the same. Madison was founded in 1838 and named after President James Madison. The courthouse C-Square is genuinely beautiful, with live oaks draped in Spanish moss. The contrast between the architecture and the poverty rate is one of the sharpest lowest on this list. 34% of the people who live around a postcard-worthy courthouse cannot afford to eat 3 meals a day. The Victorian buildings were built by a cotton economy that has been dead for over a century. The buildings survived, the economy did not. Liberty County, roughly 60 miles west of Tallahassee. Population 922. Bristol is the county seat of Florida's least populous county. Median home value ranges from roughly $118,000 to $148,600 depending on source. The economy runs on timber, the Apalachicola River, and a state correctional institution. Liberty County has no traffic lights. The entire county, not one. The Apalachicola National Forest covers much of the county, and the Apalachicola River, one of the most biodiverse waterways in North America, runs along its western edge. Torreya State Park, home to one of the rarest trees on Earth, the Florida torreya, sits just north. The park's bluffs rise over 150 feet above the river, which counts as a mountain in Florida. Bristol is cheap because there is nothing commercial here, no chain restaurants, no big box stores. The nearest Walmart is in Blountstown, 20 minutes away. The nearest real city is Tallahassee, over an hour, but the river is clean, the forest is vast, and the county has 0 traffic lights. That last fact is either a selling point or a warning, depending on what you need from a town. Gulf County, roughly 90 miles southwest of Tallahassee. Population roughly 2,074. Pronounced Weewaa-Hitchka. Famous for 2 things, Tupelo honey and a movie. The Dead Lakes, a flooded cypress forest where the Chipola River backs into the Apalachicola floodplain, produce some of the finest Tupelo honey in the world. The 1997 film Uli's Gold, starring Peter Fonda, was set here and filmed the honey harvest on location. Fonda was nominated for an Academy Award. Gulf County's median home prices run well under $200,000. Weewaa-Hitchka took significant damage from Hurricane Michael in 2018, which hit the Panhandle as a Category 5 with 160-mile-per-hour winds. The storm ripped through Gulf County's timber stands and damaged homes that were already modest. The town has a small grocery, a few churches, and a honey festival every spring. The Dead Lakes are hauntingly beautiful, standing cypress trees in still brown water stretching to the horizon. Weewaa-Hitchka is the town where an Academy Award-nominated actor harvested honey. That is either the best or worst Zillow listing hook in Florida history. Washington and Holmes counties on I-10 in the Central Panhandle, roughly 90 miles west of Tallahassee. Combined population roughly 10,000. Holmes County has the lowest average property tax bill in the entire state of Florida at roughly $527 per year. That is not a monthly payment. That is the annual tax bill. Bonifay's typical home value sits around $153,000 with cheap rural homes and acreage throughout both counties. These are deep country agricultural towns. Holmes County runs 80+ years of rodeo tradition through its annual Northwest Florida Championship Rodeo. Both towns took damage from Hurricane Michael. Both towns were already cheap before the storm. The I-10 corridor runs through, but nobody stops. The nearest city of any size is Dothan, Alabama, which is across the state line and also not a city anyone is rushing toward. Chipley and Bonifay exist in the part of Florida that feels more like Alabama or South Georgia than anything resembling Miami. The accents are different. The food is different. The property taxes are $527. That number alone is worth the entry. The 2 counties are also the geographic center of Florida's peanut belt. Washington County produces more peanuts per acre than most counties in Georgia. The rodeo draws thousands every October. The rest of the year, the towns are quiet, conservative, and cheap enough that a retiree on Social Security can own a house outright and still have money left over for groceries. That math does not work in Orlando. It barely works anywhere else in Florida. Here it works because nobody else wants to live here. Putnam County, on the St. Johns River, roughly 60 miles south of Jacksonville. Population roughly 10,300. Census median home value roughly $82,400. Poverty rate 37.3%. Palatka was once a thriving river port and a Gilded Age winter resort for northern tourists who arrive by steamboat. The Ravine Gardens State Park, a Works Progress Administration project from the 1930s. features one of the few genuine ravines in Florida, dropping roughly 65 feet into a lush subtropical canyon. That is as close to a gorge as Florida gets. The town declined steadily after the railroad bypassed it, the timber industry shrank, and the paper mill that sustained the economy for decades reduced operations. Today, Palatka has a beautiful riverfront, a struggling downtown, and a poverty rate that would shock most people who think Florida is uniformly wealthy. The annual Azalea Festival draws visitors every spring. The St. Johns River is one of the few north-flowing rivers in America. The real estate is cheap because the economy never recovered from the steamboat era ending. Palatka peaked in the 1890s. The architecture remembers. The bank accounts do not. Putnam County has one of the highest poverty rates in Florida. The opioid crisis hit hard here, as it did across rural North Florida. The county jail has been overcrowded for years, but the ravine gardens are stunning. The river is wide, and the real estate is cheaper than anywhere else within an hour of Jacksonville. The steamboats left, the azaleas stayed, and the houses cost what they cost because the economy has been running on nostalgia and Dollar General for 20 years. DeSoto County, roughly 75 miles southeast of Tampa. Population roughly 7,500. Median household income roughly $34,000. Famous for two things, antiques and hurricanes. Arcadia has one of the largest concentrations of antique dealers in Florida, drawing buyers from across the state every weekend. It also has one of the worst hurricane histories. In August 2004, Hurricane Charlie's eye passed directly over Arcadia as a Category 4. DeSoto County reported 90% of homes damaged and over 3,600 destroyed or heavily damaged. In September 2022, Hurricane Ian flooded the town again when the Peace River crested at historic levels. The All-Florida Championship Rodeo has run since 1928, making it one of the oldest rodeos in the state. Home prices vary wildly from sub-$100,000 fixer-uppers to $275,000 median sales. The antique shops survive because the tourists come on weekends. The residents survive because the cost of living is low enough to absorb 2 catastrophic hurricanes in 18 years. Arcadia is the town that gets knocked down and rebuilt and knocked down again and rebuilt again. The antiques are worth more than some of the houses that hold them. In 1987, the Rays, a hemophiliac family of 3 boys who contracted HIV through blood transfusions, were driven out of Arcadia after their house was firebombed by neighbors who feared the disease. The story made national news and became one of the defining incidents of the AIDS crisis in small-town America. The town has since reconciled with the family's legacy, but the history adds another layer to the real estate math. Arcadia's prices reflect hurricanes, poverty, and a history that most towns would prefer to forget. If these towns are making you rethink everything you thought you knew about Florida real estate, hit like. Subscribe because the top 10 are even cheaper. Hardee County, roughly 80 miles southeast of Tampa on US 17. Typical home value, roughly $175,000 to $182,000, the cheapest of the 3 Hardee County towns. Bowling Green is a heavily agricultural, heavily Hispanic farm worker community in the heart of phosphate country. The Mosaic Company mines run nearby, extracting the phosphate rock that becomes fertilizer for half the world's food supply. Hardee County sits in Bone Valley, home to most of North America's phosphate reserves. The mines pay well, but they also leave behind clay-settling ponds, reclaimed moonscapes, and groundwater concerns that keep property values low. Paynes Creek Historic State Park preserves the site of an 1849 Indian trading post. The town has a small downtown, a few restaurants, and a school system where minority enrollment is roughly 70% and nearly half the students are economically disadvantaged. Bowling Green is cheap because phosphate mining makes the land productive but not desirable. Nobody dreams of retiring next to a settling pond, but the settling pond pays for the fertilizer that feeds the planet. Hardee County, the county seat on US 17. Population roughly 5,300. Typical home value around $199,000 with cheaper homes and mobile homes scattered throughout the county. The economy runs on phosphate, citrus, and cattle. Hurricane Charlie hit Wauchula directly in 2004 with winds clocked at 149 miles per hour. The downtown was devastated. 20 years later, the recovery is still not complete. The courthouse survived. Several blocks around it did not. Wauchula has a small hospital, a Winn-Dixie, and a rodeo arena that hosts events throughout the year. The Peace River runs through town, providing some of the best fossil hunting in Florida. You can wade into the river and pull megalodon teeth and mammoth bones out of the gravel. Shark teeth from a sea that covered Florida millions of years ago, sitting in the same river where kids swim on Saturday afternoons. The town is cheap because the hurricane flattened it and the economy was already fragile, but the fossils are free and the river does not charge admission. Hardee County is one of the least visited counties in Florida despite having some of the best natural attractions. The Peace River fossil beds produce megalodon teeth up to 6 inches long. Kayakers and waders find them lodged in the limestone after every heavy rain. The phosphate mining upstream churns up ancient deposits that wash downriver and settle in the gravel bars. A megalodon tooth sells for $50 to $300 online. A house in Wauchula sells for less than the car you would drive to pick it up. The math is absurd. The fossils are real. Hendry County on the southwest shore of Lake Okeechobee, roughly 90 miles northwest of Fort Lauderdale. America's sweetest town, population roughly 7,500. The company seat of U.S. Sugar Corporation, which has operated here since the 1930s. The entire economy revolves around sugarcane harvested from the black muck soil around the lake. Hendry County median home prices run under $190,000. Clewiston has the Clewiston Inn, a historic hotel built by U.S. Sugar in 1938, and a small downtown that feels like a company town because it is one. The Herbert Hoover Dike encircles Lake Okeechobee, a 143-mile earthen levee that the Army Corps of Engineers has spent over $1 billion reinforcing because a catastrophic breach could flood everything south to Fort Lauderdale. In 1928, the Okeechobee hurricane killed at least 2,500 people when the old dike failed. Most of the dead were black migrant farm workers. Zora Neale Hurston wrote about the disaster and their eyes were watching God. Clewiston is cheap because it is a sugar company town on the wrong side of a levee that failed once and might fail again. The sugar is sweet, the history is not. Palm Beach County, on the southeast shore of Lake Okeechobee, combined population roughly 22,000. These are among the poorest communities in one of the wealthiest counties in America. Palm Beach County's median household income exceeds $70,000. In the Glades area, it drops to between $28,000 and $40,000. Poverty rates run 27% to 40%. Belle Glades' average home value sits around $112,700. The town motto is, "Her soil is her fortune." Sugarcane on black muck. Pahokie's numbers are even lower. In the 1980s, Belle Glade had the highest AIDS rate in the United States. Today it produces an absurd number of NFL players despite having fewer than 18,000 residents. Fred Taylor, Santonio Holmes, Anquan Bolden, and Jesse Hester all came from Muck City. The football is survival. The scholarships are the only way out for many families. Palm Beach is 45 miles east. The wealth gap between the coast and the lake is one of the most extreme in America. The soil grows sugar. The sugar funds scholarships. The scholarships are football, and the houses cost less than the cars the NFL players drive back to visit. Jackson County in the Central Panhandle, roughly 60 miles west of Tallahassee. Population roughly 9,000. Elevation 110 to 120 feet in the Mariana Lowlands, a karst region of limestone, sinkholes, and caves. This is the headline mountain town. Florida Caverns State Park offers the only public guided cave tours in the state. The only dry air-filled walking caves in Florida, a national natural landmark opened to the public in 1942. The caves maintain a constant 65 degrees year-round. Stalactites, stalagmites, flowstone, and crystal clear underground pools. On the surface, Mariana has a historic downtown with over 180 buildings on the National Register, a Civil War battle site, and a listing price range that starts at $14,400 for a 1-acre lot. Hurricane Michael hit Mariana directly in October 2018 as a Category 5. The storm destroyed timber stands, ripped roofs off historic buildings, and flattened mobile homes across Jackson County. The county lost an estimated 80% of its timber in a single night. 5 years later, the recovery is ongoing and the real estate is still cheap. A town with actual caves, actual hills, actual history, and a lot listed for $14,400 cash. That is less than a used Toyota Camry. as Denton County, on bluffs above the Apalachicola River, roughly 50 miles northwest of Tallahassee. Population roughly 2,955. Zillow typical home value approximately $104,565, with a 12-month median sale price around $112,500. One of the cheapest whole town markets in the state. Owner finance parcels list around $43,000 to $50,000. The town sits on bluffs that rise above the river, which counts as high ground in the Panhandle. The largest employer is Florida State Hospital, the state's oldest and largest psychiatric institution, built on the site of a Civil War arsenal. The hospital inspired the 1989 film Chattahoochee, starring Gary Oldman, based on the true story of a patient who exposed abusive conditions in the 1950s. The U.S. Supreme Court case O'Connor v. Donaldson, which established that a state cannot constitutionally confine a non-dangerous individual who can survive on their own, originated from this hospital. Chattahoochee is cheap because the town's identity is inseparable from the institution. The hospital is the economy is the hospital, and the real estate reflects what people are willing to pay to live next to a psychiatric facility that made Supreme Court history. Highlands County, on the Lake Wales Ridge, roughly 90 miles south of Orlando. Population roughly 10,000. Elevation approximately 154 feet, among the highest town elevations in peninsular Florida. This is the town that sits on a 2-million-year-old Pleistocene island. When the rest of Florida was underwater, the Lake Wales Ridge was a chain of islands, which is why it hosts the greatest concentration of local endemic species in eastern North America. The Florida scrub jay, the Florida mouse, the state's only endemic mammal, and over 20 federally listed plant species found nowhere else on Earth, all live on this ridge. Avon Park's human statistics are less remarkable. Median household income roughly $36,485. A 2020 study by 24/7 Wall Saint ranked it among America's 50 worst cities to live in, citing a median home value of $68,400, unemployment of nearly 20%, and a poverty rate of 33%. Current values have risen to between $144,000 and $208,000 depending on source, but cheap fixer-uppers and mobile homes remain abundant. The historic Hotel Jacaranda anchors a faded Grand downtown. Avon Park is the town where the biology is extraordinary and the economics are devastating. The ridge saved an entire ecosystem from the sea. It did not save the town from poverty. Highlands County, on the Lake Wales Ridge, roughly 100 miles south of Orlando. Population roughly 2,477. The town of murals, with 47 large outdoor murals painted on downtown buildings. Also the caladium capital of the world. Lake Placid alone grows roughly 90% of the world's supply of caladium bulbs, and Highlands County as a whole produces about 99% of global supply across over 1,000 acres. The town also has the only clown museum and clown school in the United States, which earned it Reader's Digest title of Most Interesting Town in America. Surrounded by 27 freshwater lakes, median home values in the mid-200,000s, but the Placid Lakes and Leisure Lakes subdivisions are loaded with cheap mobile homes, lots, and owner finance parcels advertised at $3,000 down. The ridge elevation provides genuine rolling terrain. The murals provide color on every block. The clown school provides something no other town on this list can offer, which is a professional clown certification in the cheapest county on a 2-million-year-old island in the middle of Florida. That sentence should not make sense. It does. Lake Placid is the most interesting cheap town in America, and the Caladium proves it. Polk County, on the Lake Wales Ridge, roughly 80 miles south of Orlando. Population roughly 3,394. Elevation approximately 125 feet on the ancient ridge. The name comes from a 19th century legend that the town was far enough south on the ridge to escape citrus-killing frosts. It was not entirely true. Freezes hit periodically, and the citrus industry that built Frostproof has shrunk dramatically. Zillow puts the typical home value around $206,000, but the actual sales range tells the real story. Recently sold homes in the area have gone as low as $32,605. That is less than a 3-year-old Honda Civic. Tiger Creek Preserve, 5 miles north, is one of the densest concentrations of endangered species in the entire country, protecting ancient Florida scrub habitat that has existed continuously for millions of years. Frostproof has a small downtown, a few restaurants, and a landscape that looks more like the Carolina Sandhills than coastal Florida. Rolling white sand, scrub oak, Oaks and Palmetto. The town that was supposed to be frostproof was not. The citrus that was supposed to last forever did not. And the ridge that was supposed to be underwater 2 million years ago is still here, still dry, and still selling houses for less than the price of a used car. Gadsden County, roughly 25 miles northwest of Tallahassee, population roughly 7,000 to 8,000, set in the rolling red hills of Gadsden County, which is the closest thing Florida has to Georgia's Piedmont. This is the town of Coca-Cola millionaires. In the 1920s and 30s, a local banker named Mark Welch Pat Monroe urged residents of Quincy to buy Coca-Cola stock after its 1919 initial public offering at $40 a share. He even underwrote loans backed by the shares. A single reinvested share from that era is now worth more than $10 million. From a town of only 4,000 people in the 1940s, at least 67 residents became millionaires. Quincy became the single richest town per capita in the entire United States. Today, the Coke money has faded. Gadsden County ranks 59th of 67 Florida counties in per capita income. The poverty rate hovers around 27%. Zillow's typical home value sits around $155,000. A beautiful, historic downtown survives, partly funded by the old Coke fortunes. The rolling hills are real. The red clay soil is real. The elevation pushes past 100 feet, and the irony is devastating. A town that produced 67 millionaires from a single stock tip now has a 27% poverty rate. The Coca-Cola money built the mansions. Time emptied them. The stock split 14 times. The town did not split once. It just shrank. Quincy is number one because it is the only town on this list where the houses are cheap and the history is rich, and the gap between the two is the entire story of a place that had everything and watched it leave. The hills are still here, the millionaires are not. Florida has no mountains, but it has ridges that were islands before humans existed, caves that hold a constant 65 degrees while the surface hits 98, and towns where a 3-bedroom house costs less than the used car in the driveway. These 18 places are the Florida the Tourism Board will never put on a billboard. No beaches, no theme parks, no condos, just phosphate, honey, fossils, murals, clowns, caves, and houses that cost less than a Honda Civic. The prices are real, the reasons are worse, and the land has been here for 2 million years, longer than any of us. Drop a comment with the town that shocked you the most. Subscribe because we have more lists coming that will change how you think about where you live. See you in the next one.